Whether you keep them in your home or love to see them in theirs, these are the creatures that bring us all together.
Reptiles. We're going to be delving into the experiences of reptile lovers from around the block and around the world. This is the Reptile Talk Podcast.
Boom! What is going on, everybody? This is Jeremy Turgeon from Brassman Reptiles.
And I'm Rob, and I'm keeping it real.
And we are back after yet another hiatus because life.
That's okay. We have stuff in the pipeline. We're doing a doubleheader tonight. So if you are live with us, you'll get 2 episodes tonight. If not, you'll get 1, and then a week later you get another one. And then I've got several other people lined up who gave us the green light. We're just trying to work out scheduling to get those recorded. So we will have a bunch of stuff coming up for you guys here in the not so distant future.
Yeah, it's about time.
And not to mention, we're super excited tonight because we're just backstage with Chris, and his background is some black box cages. And dude, they look so nice.
It looks really good.
I was really just looking at it. I was like, oh, I got some scrubs that are getting too big for the enclosures I got them in right now. And I'm like, I need to get some 3-foot enclosures for the scrubs.
Yeah.
And seeing some of the stuff that Black Box is rolling out recently.
We're definitely gonna do a featured episode on Black Box and some of the innovations that they're doing with some of their new model racks and some of the new accessories that they're coming out with. So I was actually just down there, met with Jen and Clint, and they were showing me some of the stuff, and we were talking about some of the things that they're getting ready to release for sale, and man, the innovations that they've got going on are just top notch. Like you're literally not going to find them anywhere else. So we're definitely going to highlight that at some point. Rob and I are going to go down there and do a YouTube video from the shop, get a chance to see a little bit of behind the scenes building cages and racks on a larger scale, not giant warehouse size, but workshop size, like notable workshop size. And of course, shortest lead time in the game. 2-week lead time for caging or rack systems. I mean, that's literally unheard of right now.
Yes. Thank freaking goodness, because man, some of the other companies who will go unnamed a year plus lead time, that's not okay.
Yeah, it's a struggle. You got to buy your baby snake and the cage for its adult life, so that by the time it's an adult, you have the cage. Oh gosh, but so I'm super stoked about that. Just stoked to be back doing another episode.
Yes,
I'm excited. We got this double header, and then we've got some other fun stuff planned for, looks like Friday is going to happen. So if you pay attention to the live episodes, you'll get a heaping helping of reptile talk over the next few days. So I'm super excited about that. So tonight we're talking about snakes that oftentimes are unspoken of.
Yes. Yeah, the most underappreciated genus.
Yeah.
In the hobby. Well, maybe not the most underappreciated, but one of the most underappreciated.
Definitely one of the most
in the hobby.
Yeah.
And tonight we're going to discuss them at length.
Yes. And I'm really stoked about them. From us coming up north where there's really only one species to moving down south to seeing multiple, and taking trips to Florida and stuff and seeing some of these awesome other species of them out in the wild. It's going to be cool to really kind of dive in. And we're talking about Nerodia.
Nerodia.
Oh gosh, but super excited. We've got Chris here from Dark Horse Herp. I'm going to bring him on so we can start talking about these stanky snakes.
Listen, okay,
they're stinky, okay. We can't we're not debating this. Even if Chris says they're not, they're stinky.
I mean,
they're not the stinkiest. Come on now.
They're not the stinkiest. That's fine. I will give you that 100%, but they're pretty damn stinky.
Maybe a fresh one in your hand in the swamp, maybe.
Yes.
Okay, fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. Northern water snakes, the ones that we will find up in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, their musk is the most potent thing I have ever encountered. Like for real. Like king cobra, northern water snake, Elaphia carinata, like top 3, just like it doesn't come off of your hands. Like when you wash your hands with soap, now it just smells like musk and soap at the same time. It's like you don't get clean from it. It's like glitter. It just stays with you for an extended period of time. Yeah. So Chris, for those of the people who might not know you or who you are, what is your main focus? What kind of brought you to where you're at right now? You can do the long version or the abridged version. That's totally up to you.
It's I'm kind of just working with stuff that I liked as a kid and looking daily at species that I like to see in the field because I like going field herping. And so a lot of the more common species, your Nerodia, your Pantherophis, are some of the things that we see, more commonly in the field. And they're just ones that I've always had a fascination with and decided a number of years ago to put a little extra effort into it once I realized that I could find like-minded people on social media, where before all she had is, little local reptile shows and stuff to find, people, and you never seem to find people that like, some of the more commonly encountered species from the range that, I live in at least. So it just decided to go back to the roots and explore what I enjoy the most. Not saying I don't enjoy a whole lot because I've worked with just about everything, but they're it's I can appreciate them just because I can see their habitats and equate that to husbandry practices and stuff. So
hell yeah. I think it's interesting because a lot of people, when they hear water snakes, they're like, oh, you have to keep it in a fully aquatic setup. And for anyone who keeps Nerodia, you know that is to their detriment. They don't actually want to be in the water 24/7, and it can actually lead to a lot of issues, which is a little counterintuitive for what people might think.
Yeah, it's definitely in most cases not an ideal situation. Will usually lead to death in one form or another. There are, if you really do it just right and there's enough dry air above and basking opportunities, it's possible. But it's, in most cases, just maintaining them like you would rats and kings, with very good ventilation so that the environment doesn't get humid and stagnant and stuff. They do great under those circumstances.
Hell yeah. And do you have a specific subspecies that's your favorite or locale?
Did we lose Rob?
Oh, no, I was just saying, do you have a favorite subspecies or locale?
I mean, Nerodia fasciatus always been a huge favorite of mine. I was working with about, trying to remember what I was kind of working with, maybe 13 or 14 different locales across the 3 subspecies. I ended up putting loner groups out with a group of about 5 friends that are all diehard Nerodia guys to help try to keep the populations going if possible. I just didn't have enough room to keep everything that I wanted, but I was able to get my hands on stuff through field time and a few good friends along the way. So I've got a really good crew of the lowest of the low. Let me see if I can get this in front of the camera. The lowest of the low. It doesn't get any lamer than that, man. We got a good tight crew of guys that love their Nerodia, and Nerodia fasciata has definitely always been it's the common water species that I came across growing up in Central Florida. So it was, and once I started getting out herping away from my immediate area as I got a little older, I was able to realize that the variability within bandids in general is just phenomenal. and intriguing, and nobody really put much effort into working with them and understanding them and how their ontogenetic change works, how their phenotypic inheritance works, all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work it, and I'm going to make it happen. Uh, and so I set out not quite 10 years ago and said, I'm going to do this. And here we are. I'm trying to get people to appreciate some really, really cool snakes out there.
Hell yeah. I think that one of the things that Nerodia need is just like a really good PR push for them, because they're really cool snakes. Like, one of the things that I find that people like in reptiles in general is just stuff that has really textured scales. And if you've ever held a Nerodia, a water snake, in your hands, they've got these like almost dragon scales on them. And it's, even when they're small, the scales are just so heavily textured to help them move through the water. It's if you can get them into people's hands, if they can get a chance to see them up close, I think it would give people a little bit of a better appreciation for them. And then also, just like a lot of wild water snakes are not going to be super thrilled with being picked up, but working with them in captivity and captive bred animals, you can start to get closer to an animal that is more okay with being handled. They might not be like your ball pythons, but they're much more tolerant of, being handled. And
they're most of my bandeds and even my mangrove salt marshes, they're better than most of my rat snakes I keep. They're just way more laid back, tractable. You go up to their cages, they're coming right up to you. Some of them are shyer than others, and certain species are naturally shyer than others. But I've been really drawn to like the bandeds and the salt marsh snakes, and they're just really, really just outgoing, easy to deal with snakes for the most part. There's always some individuals that, and a lot of times males, especially, maybe not quite as, outgoing and eager to see somebody, but I can grab any of my bandits and stuff and just pull them right out and hold them just as I would any of my rats or anything. And they're just way more laid back. In fact, even a lot of my wild caught breeders along the way. I mean, you give them 2 or 3 weeks and get them eating, and they're just as chill as can be.
Yeah. It's very interesting to me, because the ones that I was dealing with up in like Massachusetts and New Hampshire were very quick to bite and ask questions later. Yeah. And then Jeremy, when we just went down to Florida, we were picking banded water snakes out of the water, and not one of them tried to bite us, and most of them didn't even musk us, which is like, was mind-blowing.
Polar
because come from it's completely opposite of the ones that we got. The ones that we got up north are like war-torn and angry and like bitter. They're just like New Englanders. And then the ones in Florida are like, whatever, everything's cool.
It varies a lot across the range and from species to species. Like even with bandits, like your Floridas are way, way better than your stuff farther west. You get out and cross, like I've noticed, kind of like the Mobile Delta. Once you kind of cross that and start heading towards the confluence range, like your temperaments go downhill really quick. Like I always say, like your more eastern localities are the most laid back, and it slowly gets worse as you head west. But some of mine, now that I'm getting, like I'm out to F2 on some of my broads, they're better. They're better than their ancestors were that started some of the population. But they're in fact, I've even got one, my Chambers County, Texas. I'm still working with the original wild caught trio of adults, and the male's squirrely, but he lives with 2 big females, so it's kind of understandable. And those girls are, especially the bigger girls, got to be 10, 15 times bigger than he is. So he's a little squirt compared to the girls. And so and they're very dominant, very eager to eat at any motion that's even brought close to them. They think they're going to get fed. So but they're super handleable and tractable. As once they realize that you're not going to give them food, then they're like, this is fine, easy peasy.
I think it's to be stated that I have a very special place in my heart for confluence for the broad-banded water snakes. When I saw some pictures of those things, I was like, oh, something deep in my soul is stirring right now. And I need to see. I haven't gone to Texas to see them yet, but if there was ever anything that was going to bring me to Texas, it is those water snakes, because just looking on iNaturalist and like on Instagram and like some of the other things, areas where I've seen people herping, and some of the stuff that people are finding, these broad-banded water snakes look like
just insane.
They're like dark contrast with these bright red and orange flames up the sides, and like, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of variation within the broad-banded water snakes of confluence, and they're all cool, but just seeing some of those bright colored ones, I'm like, oh my goodness, why have these not, like, people look at Okatee corn snakes and they're like, these are the best things ever, and it's like, some of those confluents are just as bright as Okatees, and they stay smaller and they've got more contrast.
So I don't know, some of those females will outweigh an Okatee in a heartbeat by a long shot.
Oh yeah.
By a long shot. I mean, my big Chambers girl, she's probably bigger than my Brasorias. I mean, she's got to be pushing 5 pounds, and she's an easy 4 foot. She's enormous. She's as big as my forearm. I mean, she's a beast.
Jeez.
I mean, and gravid right now, so like she's even bigger at the moment.
Man, so now I'm having like imaginatory flashbacks, Rob, to playing with northern water snakes. Imagine a northern water snake that big and mad.
Bro,
they do get big. They get big up there.
That I went to, there's one place, I'm not going to say where it is on here, because this is like there's a campground right in the area, and all the people at the campground who come there every single year, they know this water snake, and they've named it 5 o'clock Charlie. And I am not kidding you, man. This female northern water snake has to be pushing 5 foot. God. She is like, I'd be holding her and she'd almost be touching the ground. I'm 6 foot tall, and she'd almost be touching the ground, man. Huge, just like massive, like one of the biggest water snakes I've ever seen. Like the Diamondback are like the closest that I've seen to get close to that size, but hands down the biggest water snake I've seen. And it just like cruises through the swimming area of this campground, and everyone's like, oh, well, it's right around, sunset. It must be time for that snake to go out for her nightly hunt. So she comes meandering through there. All the campers know, they just let her do her thing. And I've had the pleasure of catching that snake a couple times and being lit up by that snake several times. And it's just like, I don't know. It's so cool to see a water snake that big, just like just trucking through the water. Like nothing's gonna stop that thing. She's just on the move.
Yeah, it's a tank. Sheesh. Nah. Kudos to you, Rob, for getting lit up by that.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
This is fair.
I want to do a quick shout out, because I don't know if you remember, but there was a real young kid who had come to Nerd on the tours, and his name was Caleb, and his family's British.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I just talked to them today, and his mom sent me some pictures. He was at a lake catching water snakes today, and the kid is this tall, and he's got water snakes that are like as tall as him, and he's just like holding it like, yes, this thing's amazing. Apparently it had eaten a bluegill, or what is it, a sunfish, and the spines had gone through the skin of the snake. So his mom's like, there's like a thing on it, and he's like, oh yeah, it's got like spines sticking through its rib cage. And I'm like, I have seen water snakes with some big meals in it, and sometimes they get eyes a little bit bigger than their stomach.
That one's like, doing it. We're doing it.
We're going full send. I'm just going. But she sent me a video of him, and he's literally just like, and it did not bite him. She's like, he never gets bit. He just goes in there, picks him right up, awesome. And he never gets bit. I'm like, dude, this guy, he's channeling my inner child. I'm like, he's got it. I'm so pumped.
Heck yeah.
So, Chris, do you still do a lot of field herping for Nerodia? Where are you at with that?
I don't get out as much, just life and work. I don't get out as much as I was, but and mostly also a lot of my interest takes me out of where I immediately live because the species around here, they don't do it for me like bandits and stuff do. So I don't get out as much. But I took a nice trip out with some friends in South Georgia last month or whenever it was, and I'm heading out of town this weekend to the low country of South Carolina. So I'm looking forward to that.
Ooh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Any target species? Like what are you hoping to see out
Nothing
there?
really. Habitat more than anything. Snakes show up,
Okay.
snakes show up. That's usually my goal more than anything. You know, you can't make snakes show up, can't make the weather work, can't make the moon phase be right, any of that stuff. So get out on some new turf, see some cool habitat, and snakes show up and got something to take a picture of and solid. It's a good weekend.
Heck yeah.
Hell yeah.
I'm with that.
From New England where there's just the one species of water snake, just the northern water snakes, down to here where we've got like 3-4 like regularly seen species of water snakes in this, within a 40-minute drive of where I'm at. It's so interesting to see the variation because we have a couple locales or a couple areas around here that have got these like really, really red water snakes. And then I was looking at distribution maps and like in some of the older books I was looking at, it said that like Midland water snakes don't really come out this way, but then I'm seeing water snakes that look just like Midland water snakes. And then I'm also seeing some of the northerns and plain bellies and like all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely some Midlands that range up through into central, North Carolina vicinity. I haven't paid attention to range map to see really where it is before it phenotypically turns into full Cypodons, but I know they have a nice little strip that runs up through Georgia and South Carolina and kind of in the right at the fall line kind of vicinity.
Yeah.
That's one of the common species we have here is Midlands. If you're going to see a water snake, more than likely it's going to be a Midland. Then we got yellow bellies and diamondbacks, and then all the little guys like the Eliadidae species. There's plenty of those, but you really got to go out of your way to find glossies and all that kind of stuff. We see them on occasion around here, but it's usually got to be a particular weather event to make those guys come out and be seen,
be moving, be doing something. Yeah. One of the spots that I go to regularly has like 2 or 3 sections where we pretty commonly see queen snakes, and I had not seen them just out and about, and it's so unusual because like I can go there pretty consistently and see at least 1 or 2 hanging out. And Kristen and I went out to this spot the other day and we found 2 queen snakes, a male and a female, and a northern water snake, all in this one little area. But nobody was out basking. It was like a cool day and the sun was out. So I was expecting to see stuff like out on the rocks, kind of, soaking it up a little bit. And we went out kind of earlier in the day and not everything was hiding. Everything was under rocks that day. It was just like so weird.
It's been a weird spring though. Like we've been super mild here. Like we should be cruising up in the mid 90s already. And like, I don't know that it got above 70 here today. It's been silly. It's been raining a lot. It's been, it's been a weird spring down here for us, which I've seen odd breeding behaviors with some of my animals and, stuff that ovulated and then didn't take and stuff like that. You just, every year's a different thing.
Yep. Yeah, we had a really mild winter this year. Last winter, we got a couple snowstorms, which I hear is pretty common for down here. This year, I think we had one time where I saw snow coming down, but it didn't stick or anything. Yeah. And that was it. And we got like a week of really, really cold weather. But aside from that, we had a super mild winter. I was finding herps throughout the entire winter, like literally every single month we were seeing things. The only month we didn't see stuff was December. But aside from that, every other month we were finding stuff. And
we had a real mild winter here too, except for one hard cold snap, and that was it.
Yep. Yeah. So it just makes me wonder, like, how that's going to affect our snake populations, because one of the things I work in, currently I work in pest control, and this spring has been brutal for mice. Like, so many people end up getting mice in their house, and my thought process is this winter was so mild that the mice didn't really have to go into a full hibernation. They were able to breed throughout the winter time, and then when spring came, disperse like a big population boom, and they just end up getting into people's homes. And I've seen so many mice, and I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but I've seen more rat snakes this year than I saw last year. You know, that it's probably not a direct correlation, but they're out and they're moving like a lot more regularly.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the guys up your way too, finding a lot in their neighborhoods and stuff. Lots of black rats and stuff, pretty heavily this spring so far.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And you work with some rat snakes too. What sort of stuff you working with for rats?
I've got just like, I don't know, like 6 localities of yellow rats. I've got probably 4 localities of gray rats, 1 black rat locality, got Gulf hammocks, Louisiana locale, Texas rat, Selinsky rats. What else is in there? I've got some Okeetees. I've cut back pretty heavily on my Guttatus projects to allow for room for other things, mostly for my Okeetees more than anything.
Let's go.
Yeah. I've got some. I'm really enjoying my Sherman line Okeetees, and I was able to breed a wild caught female in with some of that, and those guys are growing up. Those offspring are growing up. So come about next year, I'll have a lot of those, the new blood infused hunt club stock stuff going even more. So I'm looking forward to bringing that to fruition. So I've been sidelining a few projects, or just not keeping a group of my own. And I have a close friend that I partner with on a number of rat snake projects some of my rat snakes are from his original stock that he collected 30 plus years ago. And I've left most of those now with him and not keeping groups for myself anymore, just to give myself a little extra room for the pending Okeetee stuff, and looking forward to where that's going to go in the next couple of years.
That just gets me so hyped. I love Okeetee so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yep. I mean, I miss keeping the different keys locales that I had, and some of the others, but there's just something about those clean, bright red and orange snakes that just, harken why a lot of us got into rat snakes to begin with.
Yep. Hell yeah. And I was talking to Mike Kosicki, and he was saying that he's waiting on eggs from some of the ones that he got from you. And he's like sitting there chewing his finger. He's like excited, waiting for them to drop. And I'm like, dude, that's so awesome. I don't know. It's just weird to me that they're popular, but when I look at an Okeetee, like as like a python guy, I'm like, man, if you saw a python that looked like that, that would be the most popular python on the fucking planet. Like if they made a ball python morph that was neon orange with red spots down its back, that would be a $5,000 ball python morph. But you can get a Okeetee for $150. It's like
right.
Come on, maybe next year the ball guys will have a morph that looks like that. I mean, they're bound to end up with it. They're going to run out of patterns and colors to come up with.
Probably.
I mean, I'll be checking my friend George's table at Daytona and see if he's got any Okeetee phase balls on his table.
I was just making a push the other day. I was like listening to the Corn Stars episode, and they just briefly talked about Okeetees, and they're talking about how like, oh, I got some that are like not hunt club line, but they're like Okeetee style corn snakes. And I know some people get really bent out of shape for that about that. And I was like, that's it. From now on, all non-hunt club Okeetees are now going to be called Fokeetees.
Fokeetees. I saw that. Yeah,
They're all Focatees. That's what it's going to be called now. And I'm putting it on the podcast now, so it's recorded forever.
in fact, the babies I've got right now that are just starting, they're technically Focatees because I can't prove the male that produced my pair it's not traceable to my knowing. The female was a Sherman female. A friend took his extra female Sherman back in like 2016 or whenever it was and bred it to an SMR Extreme that he had. It was a gorgeous animal, but coming from Don, I don't know the lineage of the animal, so I can't claim that it's pure stock or not. So in fact, I'll be phasing those out in the future to just focus on my Pure Hunt Club stock that I know is traceable back to wild caught animals. So and maybe Don's stock is I don't know. The animal was owned by somebody else, and I've never dealt with Don and his stock before. So these guys are beautiful OQTs that eat right off the bat for me, super easy and stunning out of the egg. Just like I opened the containers up to feed him, I was doing it last night, just looking at them like, God, these guys are sick. They're just sick.
They're just so nice looking.
That's also like one of the greatest feelings, like seeing those baby animals, like opening up that enclosure and just being like, that's just a freaking cool animal, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. These guys mature out a little bit redder than what my ideal is, like what I get out of my Pure Hunt Club stock. But I mean, you can't deny they're beautiful by any means. They're just these little 13 little babies I've got. They're all eating. A couple of them already got a couple meals into them already now, and they're just they're just glowing. I can't wait for my Sherman clutch to hatch, and I don't know how much longer. A couple more weeks. I'm probably halfway through on that clutch before they hatch, and I'm eager to see those little babies pop out too. They're never quite as bright as the others, but boy, they mature out better. For what I like, like I like a little more contrast, blotch to background, and a little cleaner colors. And so that's what some of those animals look like for me. And I'm not a heavy blotch person either. I don't like those heavy borders. I like it. I just like it to break it up and have a nice color contrast. But it's the stuff that I should start producing next year are going to be bangers. These 2-year-olds that I've got now are just ridiculous.
Yes.
And they're right on track to be ready next year. So they should be good. Maybe I can give my Sherman female a break next year.
Heck yeah.
So do you brewmate those or no?
Yeah, I have been. It's amazing. I've got a lot of animals that when I hold them off to give them a break, they still go because I cohab a lot of almost all my stuff that I breed. And so like I had a couple things this year, a couple waters that didn't do anything. The females ovulated. I could tell they ovulated, but I didn't end up getting anything production wise out of them. And yet I had 2 groups of bandeds go that I didn't cycle. They were cycled. They just weren't cooled. They were cycled to photoperiod humidity changes in the room,
right.
Just from what they get exposed to from a window, and the heat comes on, so the humidity drops in the room by probably 20 or 30%. So they get cycled, but I'm probably going to be doing some modifications to how I cool and what I cool going into this next fall, and might just do a little less in the fridge and a little bit more left to be, so to speak. Because I have to get to the point now where in order to give stuff a break, I just got to separate the sexes up in order to keep them, let them get some size up so that they can't breed.
Yeah.
Right.
Like my yellows. I didn't breed my Seminole yellows this year because they just kept breeding no matter whether I cycled them or not. So I got 2 girls sitting out here in a display cage, and the 2 boys are bunked up together in the snake room, and everybody's getting nice and big and fat and finally putting size on because they're not having to produce.
Right.
Dude, hell yeah. Is that so? That's what's in those black boxes behind you right there? Or is it something else?
Here. Those 2 have Russian Berger eye in them.
Oh, cool.
Corrales. If I get my pointer, that top cage, damn it. There, that one.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that has that problem.
This thing's all flip-flopped. I never had tried to do that. That top cage has got 2 big female Seminole yellows in it, and it also has 2 bandeds females living in that are sub-adults that I'm raising up, so they're hanging out. One is a guess she's an F1 Lake Jessup, which is same area, same spot, essentially only 3 miles away from where I caught my yellows. She's growing up in there, and I've got another odd one that Matt Dove had sent me that I don't have paired up, so she's hanging out in there, living the good life at the moment. So, and then there's various other things. I got white lips over here below them, and Indian sand boas below them, and black Russian sand boas, more Indian sand boas. Most of my tropical stuff is all out here, and some new cages for some new pickups I'm getting this weekend. So I'm getting those cages cycled and temp set and all that kind of stuff, because I'll be picking up a couple of snakes when I go to South Carolina this weekend.
Jumping into the reticulated python game, are you? No, just kidding.
No. Can't keep those in the state anyways, but no. I've worked with my share of big snakes, and it's not my cup of tea. We raise and show dog, so I'm not keeping big snakes around. It's kind of like having hot snakes. There's just too much liabilities and chances, and a big berm or retic would eat one of my shelties, so that's not going to happen.
Fair.
That's fair. I think that the idea of a big snake is cool, and then until people actually have big snakes, they're like, wow, this thing is a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I worked with yellows and berms enough in the zoo field that I got that out of my system. I don't need to do it. Although some nice big scrubs have always called my name for decades now. Just never gone down that road.
Just
never say never.
I know. I know. I don't even know what the status is on them in my state. I don't know if they're lumped in. I don't think they're lumped in with the other ones. With the other ones we can't keep, but I don't really know. But
wait.
Yeah, I mean, God, you can't. You can't. No, I'm in Alabama.
Alabama, okay.
So they ban all sorts of stuff around here. I can't. Yeah, I don't think they are. I think just the rocks and berms and anacondas and all that's retics. Yeah, I think those are pretty much just in it. But I hadn't really paid attention to it because it doesn't apply to me. I pay attention when they ban the king snakes and crap.
Right.
Which they just did. They just banned all native Lamprepeltis in the state. It was looking like they were going to ban all Lamprepeltis, but now it's like anything remotely native you can't now have. So, which we already couldn't keep half of them as it was. So, is what it is.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and no licensing. No, you can't have it. You can get a permit for one, and if you prove you're doing enough educational programs. I'm not social enough to make that reality. So, just want to work with my snakes. I can't even keep Gulf salt marsh snakes here because we have a teeny little bit of range on the coast, and despite having a range from Levy County all the way to Corpus Christi, we have a little coast for Alabama, and so we can't touch in the state. So, is what it is. I can't do anything about that either.
Good Lord.
Yeah, that's right. I got enough mangrove salt marsh snakes to keep me happy. Not really, but
whatever you got to tell yourself to sleep at night. That's
right. Yeah, what I tell myself is there's still a couple spots along the range that I don't have. I'm not working with and I haven't seen in the field, so I'm trying to make something happen with that.
Right.
Nobody else going to work with them. I will, damn it.
That's what you got to do sometimes, man. That's just what it boils down to. Yeah. I was, like I said, I've been looking at those confluence, those broadbanded water snakes, and I'm like, man, I really want to see if I can go to Texas and collect some of those crazy contrast ones. And I've never like collected and kept snakes. Like it's just not usually my deal. I usually am just like, I just rather see stuff out in the wild, and but those have got me so tempted to like, go to Texas, get a collection permit, see if I can't do something, and spend a week out there, do some herping, and see if I can get some high contrast ones just to like establish them.
Yeah, I've got some really insane ones that I don't have a mate for. My two female Brazorias I've had now for, I guess, 3 years. They were like, I don't know, 12, 15 inches when I got them from a friend. And in fact, he brought them to me in Daytona in 2019, I guess it was, before the pandemic. And man, they're like 4-foot plus beasts now, and the most gorgeous confluence you can imagine. But I don't have a male for them, so they just living the good life and getting bigger on me.
So what you're saying is we need to make pit stops when we go there.
Right.
I know where to go. It's just like a 12-hour drive, and it just hasn't happened. So I never seem to go that way. Usually if I leave the state, it inevitably is to Florida. That seems to be the only place I seem to manage to go anywhere, unless it's on a plane. Now, a plane, I go other places, but it's never for herp-related stuff. It's always for music-related stuff. So,
yeah.
I feel that. I feel
yeah. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
Oh man.
I mean, hell, in the past 12 months, I've been to Philly 3 times just to go see bands play, you know?
Yeah. You got to find the time to be able to wedge in a little side track thing to go off and do something herp related.
Yeah.
I try every music related trip I do, I try to carve out at least an hour to find something reptile related, even if it's to go laugh at employees at Petco. I'm doing something reptile related.
Hey, it's not their fault, man. They're trying.
It's true. True. They're trying. They're trying.
They just haven't gotten in the right. They just don't know the right people.
Yeah, they're using their 5 companion animal training questions to the best of their ability. That's
yes.
I guess it's funny when I was younger and I used to go to Petco or PetSmart to pick up crickets to feed my stuff. You know, I get 100 crickets at a time, and every time I go in there, you know, you see a new employee and you're like, oh great, here it comes. And then I'll take 100 crickets. They're like, oh, well, what are you feeding? And I'm like, oh man, I got to go down this stupid list of everything I'm fucking feeding tonight.
Oh god, you just gotta like keep a scroll.
Of
all the species.
flap it out.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody gets 1 cricket.
You're like, oh, you have quite a few tarantulas. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Can you guys just keep a list in the break room so when I show up with just my picture next to it, so when I show up, you don't ask me this question?
I had a couple employees who knew me, so they see me come in and they're like, "Oh, I'll get the 100 crickets ready for you."
Yes.
You know, and I started breeding my own roaches, and I was like, never again.
Right. Oh gosh. Oh man, that's pretty good. That is pretty.
So,
good.
Chris,
Rob, it sounds like you need to get some broadbands one of these days. I mean, that's just I'm just saying.
Believe me, it's going to happen.
I mean, they fit in really well with scrubs. I mean, come on. I mean, I got like sand boas and water snakes, tree boas and water snakes.
The thing is, what I want to do is when I get them, I want to put them in like a 3-foot or a 4-foot enclosure, like a 4x2x18. And so I can have like a real good sized water dish and build up the substrate so they can have like a good, and then I want to set up a rock basking area. Maybe I'm thinking too much like a northern water snakes, but maybe set up a log or whatnot and really have it so that I can look at them, because they're just so interactive. Like you were saying, when you come into the room, there's certain snakes that just like come right up to check out what's going on. Like my short tails don't give a crap, man. I walk in the room and they might like follow you with the eye for a second, but they really do not care. When I come home, like if I come into my bedroom, I got 2 southern scrubs up in my bedroom so I can like look at them from my bed. When I come in here, if I go anywhere near that side of the room, they come right up to the door to check out what's going on. And water snakes are just like that. Like a lot of those water snake species,
a lot of them are females, especially
inquisitive like that.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Some aren't. You know, and species they vary. Some of them, you know, like the Midlands, I've kept over the years. Which is one reason I don't really work with them much anymore. Is a lot of the Cypnons in general, I've found they're really skittish and shy, and you basically never see them unless you force them to come out in the open. I mean, that's at least my experience with Cypnons that I've kept from North Carolina and Pluralis from within this part of the state here. They're just, I don't know. They're not as, for the most part, as outgoing as some of the others. I mean, I've got yellow bellies that are super chill, some big adult yellow belly waters that are super awesome, part of that anthristic project I'm working with, and they're great. They're better than some of the ones I worked with years ago. But at the same time, I don't get the same thing out of them as I do my bandeds with all the natural polymorphism. There's just something, I look at a banded's head and I'm just like, that's rad. Something about
it. Yeah. Yeah, I think that one of the other things that people don't think about when it comes to water snakes, like one of the things that, like in general, like when people come from like keeping pythons and boas and even a lot of other colubrids, is that they do best kind of on their own, and you kind of want to keep them solitary, where water snakes, even in the wild, will often share basking areas. You often see them in the same area with one another, sharing, all this different habitat. And in captivity, I mean, I would love to hear your take on this, but from what it seems, they do better when you keep them in small groups, or at least with two together.
Yeah, I tend to raise up young together in groups, depending on just what the situation allows, and I separate them up by feeding habits when they're little, because there's always some in the clutch that are, obviously it would have been the survivors in the wild that are just super gluttonous feeders, just overpower everybody else, and so you start breaking those up into groups, and the more submissive ones take a little bit more time and a little bit more effort, and those are usually the ones that I have, available come winter and spring, that they're just not as pushy as the other ones from the get-go. I found in a lot of cases, though, you end up with some dynamics. I try not to do a lot of them too much more than pairs. I get away with trios as adults in some cases. I've got a few things set up in trios, but just over the years, I've found that you tend to end up with an odd man out in the group with three that just doesn't get enough food. It gets bullied, that kind of thing. Even if you don't technically see the bullying, it's obviously happening because they just end up being more submissive than the others. So I found, for the most part, trying to just keep pairs together works better. I'll raise up young in groups of 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on what I've held back or what I'm keeping, those sort of things, what I've got on hand of litter mates, and they do great. And with young, a lot of times just the feeding responses of one going and checking the food item out, and they're like, oh yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. Yep. just like with garters and stuff, it's the same sort of thing. You just they're very motion attracted, and so when they see somebody going to do something else, the others are like, hey, let's go get it.
Look at that. Yeah,
let's go get in on this. And so you end up with, you end up getting more interest in feeding response, and getting these little guys going when you keep them in groups. There's always some, stragglers or, pushy ones that need to be pulled away from the rest of the litter at times for those different reasons. But for the most part, they work really good. All the little ones, I've already, like, even some of the litters I've had this year, I've already had to break up. I think I've actually only got one litter broken up in half, because I had some broadbands are always really kind of, in general, slower for me to start, especially compared to the more eastern localities of bandits. And so I always end up with like maybe 3 or 4 that like gung ho right off the bat and eat, and those quickly end up having to be put in their own tub by themselves and then let the other ones kind of get a chance to get on board without somebody literally eating absolutely everything they can fit in their stomach. And 3 or 4 of them doing that, and the rest of them getting nothing. So and you go back in, and the other ones will still go right back and keep trying to eat. So they got to be, the tide's got to be parted, and got to give the other ones a chance. And so a lot of times when I'm getting rid of babies, the most eager ones are the first ones going out the door. But a lot of times some of the other ones may be even way better looking, but I want the best ones, the most aggressive feeders, to go out to folks, that are going to get them, because those are going to do the best for them, So and a lot of times the ones I go, oh man, that's awesome, I want to save that one for myself. Man, those are always the ones that are the headaches, they're the ones
every time.
Oh yeah. And
every time, regardless of species. Regardless of species.
Yeah. I can have my concepts of how I need to handle having offspring go to people as far as making sure they get the best feeders and the most aggressive feeders that do best for them. Like my code for myself is not that good. It's always like, it's the visual attraction. And I end up, being half the size, because it took me 5 months to get them to be a decent feeder. I mean, they're eating along the way, but they're not eating what I want to feed them. And so procuring that food item ends up being time consuming and inconvenient to make it happen. So,
yep. It's I want to eat every 3 weeks, or I'll only eat a prey item that's this small.
Yeah.
As soon as it's a lick bigger.
With water snakes, it just ends up being, they want live,
Oh yeah.
You get some of them that go in there, and then I can just put some chopped fish pieces up that are thawed out from the freezer that I buy at Walmart. And some of them just go right in there and they will just clean that stuff up every time. Then the other ones are like, and you go put a couple live fish in, which I try to avoid because this parasite transfer is there, but it's that or they don't eat. So they're gonna, I got to get them started, get them going with it, and then work them over to, frozen thawed with the same smell or wiggling and teasing, whatever the case may be. Every baby is different, and every locality ends up being a little different. I've had bandits from Florida literally take unscented pinkies at birth. Meanwhile, the broadbands, many of them will drive me crazy for 4 or 5 months before they become, good, convenient. I'll just leave it as convenient eaters, where I don't have to go out of my way and work so hard to give them what they want and offer them live and all that kind of stuff. So,
Heck yeah. I got a couple comments in the chat that I want to just highlight real quick. James and Christina are here. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody that's here in the chat showing your support. Christina said, I've been busy but listening. Hey everyone, thanks Chris. I love Nerodia, but I've wondered how difficult they can be to keep. Can you give some tips and tricks for keeping Nerodia?
Really, once I worked out for myself that ventilation was key with them, much in the same way that some of your Western rat snakes and stuff are, where just really good ventilation is important. I hate aquariums on a personal level. I haven't used them in decades, but honestly, a good screen top enclosure is like super. You don't have to take these big Sterilite tubs or shoe boxes in the case of the babies and put 5 zillion holes in them, to get good ventilation. But other than that, if you're starting off with captive bred and born babies, as long as you're just giving them good ventilation, they're no more difficult to keep. I mean, my baby water snakes are kept exactly the same way as my baby rat snakes, just except for the baby waters are usually in groups. I used to do my rat snakes in groups, but I was running into headaches with it, and I decided to go solo with them, and I found a way to make that work for myself. But the waters, they thrive off of the group babies, so I tend to keep setting them up like that. But really, they're, the trick is getting captive bred and born stock, not getting some of the stuff that shows up at shows that are all wild caught and through vendor hands, dealer hands, and stressed out, not fed, and septic water situations. You get some good captive bred stock, and it makes a world of difference. But just they don't need anything different than your rat snakes. My snake room stays 80-ish. Maybe 76 on the low side depending on the time of the year, and maybe 83 if the heater warms it up a little bit in the winter. But they're not particularly demanding. They just have a few things that are not good for them, and humidity and stagnant air is one of them. I ran into issues years ago that was causing problems with my breeders, and I would lose them. And once I altered my situation in my room as a general sense, the problem completely went away, and it was all just managing humidity. I kept getting lacrimal duct infections. It turned into abscesses, and then they would stop eating, and I'd have to put them down. And once I put a small dehumidifier in the room, stopped keeping the window open as much, allowing the AC in the room from the rest of the house to cool the room with air conditioning that was dry, and get my humidity down by 30-40% in the summertime, like it just stopped. And I haven't had another one in at least 2 years since I changed it. As soon as I changed it, I hadn't had another one. I knock on wood, but I know that was what it was. It's what I suspected. I just couldn't figure out how to change my husbandry parameters with what I was working with. And once I figured out how to do it, it stopped. So, a lot of my founding breeders, I was losing into the same repeated things, and it was just a matter of troubleshooting how it was happening and why it was happening. So, yeah, there's a lot of those sort of things that just took, unfortunately, trial and error to figure out what it was, as with any species that people really start putting work with. I mean, people have worked with Nerodia, and even Philippe worked with banded water snakes back in the late 80s, and he was breeding albinos back then. People have worked with them. Nobody's just really stuck with them and put a lot of time into them and really had enough passion for them, and so I decided to do that more than anything.
That's where it's at, man. They just need that little, it really takes one person to put the best foot forward, take a little bit of time, invest in establishing a species, and then just showing it to the world for it to really just find its appreciation in the hobby. And I think that's one of the things that you're doing, and I absolutely love that. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on.
Yeah, come on, you look at my post and it's yellow rat snakes and banded water snakes. I mean, the two lowest of the low animals out there, but you know what? They're my favorite, and
they're cool,
they deserve attention. And I found a lot of other people that just go bonkers over them too. So that's all I care about. That's all I care about.
That's absolutely. Well, shout out James for the super chat here. Great convo for an underappreciated species for sure. Hopefully, looking forward to Carolina Herp Society herp outing this summer. Yes, going to happen for sure. I think there's going to be a trip to the Serpent Center that we try to plan very, very soon in South Carolina. So yeah, Herp Society stuff coming soon.
Yeah, and then I'm in the works of trying to plan an outing out kind of where closer to where I'm at, so that we can get some people out, so I can show people some stuff around here.
Yeah, buddy.
That's cool. You guys got herp societies that do stuff around there. That's rad. I grew up with that in Florida, and it seems to be, for the most part, a thing of the past these days.
We're trying to make it a thing of the current.
Yeah,
it needs to be. There's a lot lost with that, with the social media interaction. I got so much out of going to the Central Florida Herp Society meetings growing up through middle school and high school, and it was just the speakers I got to see, and the interactions and talking to people. Those years ago, even if I'm not particularly outgoing person when it comes down to that stuff, the monthly lectures and everything. It was there was a lot to be gotten out of that. And the Turtle and Tortoise Club, I was original founding member of that, and just getting to be involved with all those people and learning directly from those guys in a pre-internet age was so valuable. There's a lot of access to that information now this way, but it's different. And
the person-to-person connection.
People don't tend to appreciate those interactions. Yeah, it's definitely a different thing. I mean, the speakers that I used to get to see back in the day, I mean, Rom Whitaker would come and speak, and Bill Haas would come and speak. People like that would come and talk at the Herp Club meetings, thanks to Wayne Hill. It was, it was phenomenal getting to see that kind of stuff, and this, that doesn't exist hardly anymore, except for the handful of conferences that happen around the country. That's, hard for everybody to fit into their schedules and make a reality.
True.
I'm so jealous. Rom Whitaker is at the absolute top of my list of people that I want to meet. And I don't have a lot of people that I look up to like that. But man, he's just such an interesting person, and he's doing such cool stuff. I just want to pick his brain for 15 minutes. Just real quick.
I got to see him speak. It must have been, I think it was probably 90, 91, 92 at the latest, somewhere right in there was when I got to see him come speak at our Herp Club. It was pretty phenomenal.
Dang.
I was 3 years old. I hadn't held my first snake yet.
Even Bill Haas, when he showed up to the meeting, he pulled up in a red Rolls Royce. He pulled up in front of that.
Sheesh.
Yeah. Yeah, Red
See
Rolls
what
Royce
happens
pulls up
when
in
you
front of
play
the
with
Edgewater High
snakes,
School in
kids.
Orlando. And Bill Haas and his wife get out to come and talk.
Sheesh. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly.
Bill Haas.
Dude.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh man. All right. Well, we are winding down our hour mark. This has been great. I hope
Blew
that
right
everybody
by.
watching, it really did. I hope everybody watching and people who are listening post this being live have gotten a new appreciation for Nerodia and some rat snake species that again often go undiscussed and under the radar. So Chris, thank you so much for joining. But before we go, we ask all of our guests one final question. And that question is, what in the realm of reptiles, be it something in your own collection, something you've seen online, wherever, what in the realm of reptiles has you excited about reptiles right now?
Okay. You froze. I can't hear you.
Oh no, I froze. I was like, I'm going to insert Jeopardy music real quick. No, so what in the realm of reptiles has you excited about reptiles right now? Be it something at your place, something you saw online, anything.
Oh, God. That's pretty random.
Now insert Jeopardy music. Now.
Shit. I don't know. There's so much. I don't know. I got a clutch of water snakes I'm really looking forward to coming up, but that's not exciting to more than about three people other than me. Maybe two people other than me. Just because it's my hometown locality, abandoned water snakes from back in Orlando, and I've had one clutch already. I got a second one from a new wild caught female, and I've never seen one look like this from that locality, and so I'm pretty damned excited about that. But I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty excited about getting these these black-tailed tree boas to get going one day. And I've got 5 of them, so I'm hoping one day down the road they, decide they want to participate. But I mean, wild caught, got to cycle to Northern Hemisphere. It's going to take time. One of the females is young, so who knows? One day it'll happen. I'm not rushing it. I'm enjoying the fact that I actually have them. That's It was one of those chance opportunities. I was like, I've bred Corrales caninus, I've bred Hortulanus, I've worked with Annulatus. These were never available or even on the scope when I was, working with that stuff years ago. And so I had an opportunity to get those. I was like, gosh, maybe I can do something with them one day. If not, I'll enjoy them for now. I don't know, man. There's so many cool things out there. I don't know. Looking forward to Daytona. I mean, and what cool things will be on the table that I have no intention of buying, but look at that,
Heck yeah.
Looking forward to see what my buddy George has got for ball pythons on his table that I'm not going to buy. But I look at his table and just go, that's just insane,
Yeah.
Heck yeah. There's so
it's not supposed to be an easy question.
No.
It's not supposed to be an easy question.
I get excited about every single water snake litter I have. That excites me more than anything.
Hell yeah, man.
And if there's ever a day where it doesn't excite you, that's the day when you go, okay, I'm done with this. I'm on to my next thing.
Right. I get so stoked about baby water. And I've only got like a couple litters to do left. I've had most of the litters already this year. A lot of them are recently born and had a couple really desirable ones miss this year. And that pisses me off, but I can't make them do it, right?
Yep.
They both went last year. Didn't do it this year. They were already plenty fat. At least one of them ovulated, but nada. So, whatever. Yeah. I got babies of theirs from last year, so at least I've got some genetic reserve if things don't go right in the future too. So
true.
All right, man. So if people want to find out more about what you're doing, or if they want to see some of the amazing snakes that you're working with, where should they follow you on social media?
Oh, did we freeze again?
Yeah. Sorry for the dogs. There must have been a squirrel.
No, you're good.
There must have been a squirrel, so the dogs went barking on me.
All good. If people want to see some of the stuff you're working with, where should they follow you? Yeah, we can hear you.
I think I know where you were. think I know where you were going, but you can find me at Dark Horse Herpticulture on Facebook and Dark Horse Herp on Instagram.
Hell yeah,
Heck
man.
yeah, dude.
Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate your time. Thank you
we had
so
a blast,
much,
man.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Heck yeah.
We'll catch you
Take care,
time.
man.
Yeah. Have a good evening.
You too.